When did you know you wanted to be a Marine?
Oh, I guess I was probably 11, 12, I would imagine. Like I say, all the pictures of during the war with John Wayne and all. Yeah, so that looks like a pretty good outfit. I'd like doing that. So later in high school, when I got close to the age I could join, I joined the Marine Corps Reserves, 11th Engineer Battalion in Baltimore.
This is my grandfather, Theodore Donald Thompson, and his decision to join the United States Marine Corps started him on a journey that would shape the rest of his life. As a Marine, he served in 2 wars, earned the Purple Heart, traveled the world, and raised a family. Pop's story starts in a small Maryland suburb in the summer of 1932.
I was born on July the 2nd, 1932, in a place called Brooklyn Park, which was a suburb south of Baltimore. My mother's name was Margaret Manning. My father was Theodore Thompson. I had one brother named Ronald. I was born in about 1942. Dad was pretty hard-nosed. Mom was good. I mean, she took care of me because he was always going somewhere, like, you know, on a hunting trip or with the State Guard or what have you. And it was a normal childhood. And he supported me when I said I wanted to go in. He signed for me to join the reserve. I didn't get in any trouble and got out of school, got my diploma. And of course, like other kids, because you can't wait to get down on your own, you know, to test your own mettle.
When did you first enlist?
August 23rd, 1949. I was a junior in high school and just turned 17. And it was all neat because I'd never been through anything like that before. I joined the Scouts, but that's different. I was going to enlist in the regulars when I got out of high school, but before I got a chance to enlist, they called our reserve outfit to active duty for the Korean War. The Koreans were pretty well beat. You know, they were retreating up towards the north. Well, as they pushed them farther up, he entered to what's called the Chosin Reservoir. There was a reservoir just before China. And the Yalu River was right here, and Korea was here, butted up against it. Well, the North Koreans kept moving back up to the reservoir. And what we were going to do, we were going to go up there, clean them out, get it finished, you know, and then as soon as we got them, then the war probably quit. Well, when we got up there, the Chinese came into it. If you look at a map, it's all mountains. Once we got up, the Chinese came in and it got the road cut and we couldn't get back out. That's why it is. I mean, Korea's open, wide open the rest of the time, but when you get up in those mountains, you know, like I say, there's only one road going up and one road come back. And as soon as they cut that, there was no chance of just getting out unless you fought your way out. And that's what they did.
Where was your father's family from?
Father's family was from Norway. They came over here, I guess, in the 1800s. I assume through Ellis Island. Dad was born in New York City in 1907. They lived up there for a few years until they came to Baltimore. My uncles and all on that side of the family were all Coast Guard personnel. So Dad and the family moved to Curtis Bay, which is a Coast Guard yard in Baltimore, where he started to work. That's where his father, mother, and the whole family lived. Now, I don't know where my mother came across through, because Mom didn't want to talk about her mother, so she often joked she didn't want to know where relations are, because they might have been a horse thief in there somewhere. Mom was born in Ireland, came over here with her mother. Mother died. She was put into an orphanage up in Western Maryland and stayed there until she was about 17 or 18. From then she went to work in Baltimore in a clothes factory. So I don't know much about her mother. Her birth certificate was burned in Ireland in a fire, so she didn't know exactly how old she was. She says she thinks she has some brothers that are in this area, but she said they didn't bother to look her up, so she never bothered to look them up. They wouldn't talk about them.
What was it like for you as an 18-year-old getting over there?
It was like a different world, you know. I'd never been out of the States before, and once we landed, of course, we went on board a ship. It took us about 2 weeks to go aboard ship across the Pacific. Pretty rough trip on that transport. There was 800 of us on the ship, and we had a typhoon. So of course everybody was seasick, and we landed in Korea at a place called Wonsan. I wasn't real fighting right away. Well, when I first got there, I was only a POC, so they'd say, you go there and you go here, you get on that truck, and it was all kind of like a blur. Things you remember you lose in time, but right then it was fine. Everything was going good, and then finally, eventually, we got up to the Hagaru, and then we joined the 7th Marines, 2nd Battalion, 7th. The night of 28th of November, it was that's when things got a little hairy, and that's when we first realized that we came all the way over here, but this is the first time we've encountered anything like this, and I didn't know if it was going to get out. We were in a hole in the reverse slope, and when this started at night, and of course we had told to stay in the hole until somebody got us to come out, because figured if somebody got around us, coming through the back way, we'd be there to blunt it. Well, then, I guess it was maybe 12 o'clock or something. Somebody come down and said, "Get out of the hole, get up top of the hill," because they were coming on to us. So we went up and sat on top of the hill, and they were coming across the valley, and we were shooting down at them. They were breaking through over the other area. So I don't even know who it was. Now, company gunnery sergeant or somebody, platoon sergeant, said, "You 4 men, get up and go, and they're breaking through. Plug up the hole over there, So all 4 of us got up, started moving sideways. Should have kind of crawled instead of getting up. And then when I got up, there was snow on the ground. I saw something go plunk in the snow. It was dark object. It was a hand grenade. Somebody threw a hand grenade, and it blew up. Of course, it knocked me down, and I don't know what the other ones. So I don't remember anything out of that until I ended up in a warm-up tent. I stayed in the hospital for about 6 months. The time they operated on me and got me well enough to send me home. They flew us across to Bethesda, and I stayed there for a little bit, and sent me back to duty. Sent me over to the Navy Yard in Washington, Naval Gun Factory, the Guard Detachment. And I didn't like the Guard Detachment because you had day on and day off. You was on guard, then you was off a day, but they didn't let you off. So I went to see the First Sergeant. I said, "First Sergeant, you got any place for me to go besides here?" He said, "Well, they want some people to go on State Department duty." And State Department duty? That sounds like it's, we're real special. He said, "Well, embassy guards. Oh, so I said, "Give it to me." So we filled out the paperwork, sent it to headquarters, Marine Corps. In about 2 weeks, I was over there, and was assigned to go to Bonn, Germany. It was good duty. A lot of wearing of the blues and things like that. So I stayed there until 1954 at Rome, and then I came home.
Grandma was born near Beckley, West Virginia, into a coal mining family in July of 1934. She was one of 10 children. During her early childhood, her family moved from mining camp to mining camp, following the coal.
Well, when we lived in West Virginia, my sister and I would go on top of a mountain, and down in the valley, the train went by. And when it blew its whistle, that was the loneliest sound in the world. And we always wondered where those trains were going to. And we never expected to travel. When we got older, we expected to stay right where we were.
In 1943, they moved to Brooklyn, Maryland, where her father had gotten a job in the shipyards. It was there that she would meet Pop.
Her brother was in the reserves together in 1949. She was young then. She was like 15, so I knew her then. But I guess somewhere between 1949 and 50, I went to her, up to her brother with her brother, who lived in Brooklyn, and I went over to his house. Like I say, she was about 15, I guess. So I met her, but then I left, and when I come back from Korea, so I guess it was about 1951, I guess, when I got back. And so I said, well, I asked her dad if I could take her out, you know. That time he went up to father and say, can I take you and Joann out? And then I had to go ask, can Joe and I get married, you know?
I met him in 1950, I believe. He came to my house, and he knew my brother. And there was a lot of girls around, but he picked me, I think.
I went overseas to embassy duty, and when I come back, we'd been writing while I was over there. And I don't know, I guess just taking for granted we were going to get hitched. But so I got back and was at Camp Lejeune, and had to go to Camp Perry, Ohio for about 3 months or so. And when I got up there, I said, well, I should get married. And so we got married, and then we went up there and spent our honeymoon up there at Camp Perry in a wall tent. And then, of course, while we was up there, she found out she was pregnant with your mother. Now, men on anyway, jumped every 2 years, we were somewhere. So I guess maybe she didn't have too good a plan on, you know, what was going to come off. But once she got it, it wasn't easy. It was rough. Especially after you had your mother and then Tim, and then of course Mike come along after it. Having the 3 kids, and I was going, you know, periodically I got expected trips and what have you. So it wasn't exactly easy. And but once we got married, she stuck with it. Normal life was me going sometimes for days, you know, and normal life down there wasn't like a normal life that you would leave here, you know. I was out in the field sometime, and we lived in a trailer, and every once in a while you go TAD, I had to go on that med cruise. So I'm not sure how I really felt about having a child, you know. I loved her. She was a good little girl. She was funny sometimes. Like some of the pictures we had when they were playing out in a little pool we had for them with the little boy next door.
I don't know if he was ready for children. I don't know if I was ready for children right at that time, because it happened right off the bat. And they came so fast. I remember Debbie. He used to lay on the ground and hold her up in the air. And as they got older, he was in the Boy Scouts with Tim. And they went camping. He went right along with them.
Shortly after they were married, Pop retrained into the ordnance career field and went to school at Quantico, Virginia. After his school, my grandparents had to move the family every 2 years. Starting in 1958, they went from Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, to Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, then Alaska, and Albany, Georgia after that.
What they did, they brought out a program of ordnance people to go into the nuclear part of the ordnance program. So I volunteered to go to school. She came back up here and stayed with her mother while I was there. And I went down to Albuquerque, New Mexico to school, finished to be, it's kind of touchy now and because while I was down there, she got sick and she was in the hospital, so I had to get out of the program after I'd been through school and joined my team down at Camp Lejeune. But anyway, actually it come out to where it made out better because I probably had to go to Okinawa for a year with the team. this time they sent me to Quantico because close to being where she was here. I stayed there until 1965. And by that time she was all right. And then I got another teaching assignment to Norfolk, to a nuclear ordnance school. So that was good, so I got a chance to stay from 65 to 68, a 3-year tour. I didn't go anywhere except once in a while a week for inspection tours. And it was good. The kids had a good time down there, and we had a nice house, and it was close to here. We could go back to Baltimore if we wanted to. So washing out and not going with the team actually made it better than going with the team.
What do you think your fondest memory is?
Well, I think when we were in Norfolk, the kids were all dancing to music. Tim and Mike were there, and Debbie was in her tutu, and they were dancing.
But then 68 things fell apart. I got ordered to Vietnam. See, I'd have been ready to get out in a couple of years, but they wouldn't let you out unless you go to Vietnam one time. So that was the time it was still hot and heavy over there, 1968. Well, I wasn't out in the bush, out in the boonies, like they say, with the line troops. But when you get over there, it's a different, not another country, you know. Vietnam, it's not Korea or China, so everything's new. They put me in a combat base up in the north, so I got sent up to Dang Hoa, which was right close to. It's just maybe 30 miles from the border with Vietnam, with the north. So I went to a combat base and stayed on a combat base from 68 to 69. It was just a year working on weapons, and I got the operations chief while I was there. And 69, they pulled us out. I was ready to come home anyway, so it didn't make much difference to me. So they pulled me out and sent me to Okinawa, and I got my gear together and come on home. When I got back, I had time to do, so they wanted to send me to Albuquerque to teach in that school down there, but I just couldn't see moving them again. They were up here, and everybody had friends, you know, and they'd been in this house for a couple of years while, you know, and I didn't want to take them. But I was ready to get out, so I had about 6 months to do. So they sent me to Quantico. So they stayed here, and I stayed down Quantico. Came home when I could, and it was an odd situation towards the end. But I knew I wasn't going to go anywhere else, so we just made the best of it, and it came out all right. But Vietnam, it was pretty hairy for the troops who were out in the field, you know. And there was a lot of pot smoking going on. They were, once in a while, these troops, there were a lot of draftees. They were throwing hand grenades at staff NCOs, and all this kind of weird stuff. So I think that's mainly what I said to myself now. This is not my Marine Corps that we knew before all this happened. So I thought about time, and I did cut it loose again. Yeah. We'd had enough, both of us, I think.
When he was in the Marine Corps, he was restless. I think he was ready to go at any minute. And when he retired, he seemed to settle down.
In 1970, Pop retired from the active duty Marine Corps as a Master Sgt. To his home in Glen Burnie, Maryland. After he retired, he worked for the Postal Service, Social Security, and as an auto parts delivery driver. In the early 80s, he saw his 3 children marry. They gave him grandchildren, and now he has great-grandchildren. Today, at 77, he and Gran live at home in full retirement. They spend their time keeping up the house, taking short trips, and seeing the family whenever they can.
I think the the life has been fairly quiet. I went in the service like I wanted to, and I got through the Korean War and the Vietnam War. I have a fairly good retirement pay with raises every once in a while. So I would say I was pretty well satisfied with my life. Got a good wife, and we've had children, had grandchildren, and there's not much else you can do after that.